I accidentally connected to my wife's car Bluetooth and heard her planning with her ex-lover. Once he signs the house over for the tax benefits, we'll have everything we need to start our new life without that dog. They laughed. I continued being the perfect husband for another 87 days. This morning, my phone exploded with 142 missed calls. Look, I'm not saying I believe in signs from the universe, but if Tuesday mornings had a personality, this one would have been that guy at the DMV who tells you you're in the wrong line after you've waited 45 minutes. You know the type, dead eyes, coffee breath, probably enjoys watching people suffer for sport. I was sitting in my car in the Whole Foods parking lot, which is basically where middle-class Americans go to feel superior about their organic kale, while simultaneously wondering why their bank account is crying. I had my usual Tuesday routine down to a science. Grab the overpriced cold brew that tastes like liquefied smugness, sit in the car for exactly 7 minutes listening to my classic rock playlist, and mentally prepare myself for another day of pretending I enjoyed my job as a financial analyst. Spoiler alert, I didn't. But it paid for Clara's Pilates membership and our mortgage on a house that was approximately 70% her aesthetic vision and 30% my quiet acceptance of defeat. The Foo Fighters were playing through my car speakers, Everlong. If You're Curious, which is a fantastic song that absolutely didn't deserve to be the soundtrack to my life imploding like a poorly constructed souffle. I was halfway through my coffee, doing that thing where you bob your head slightly, because you're alone and nobody can judge your mediocre rhythm, when my phone decided to become a complete traitor. You know that little notification sound? The one that goes ding when your Bluetooth connects? Yeah, that happened. Except I wasn't trying to connect to anything. I glanced down at my phone screen, confused, because the last time I'd intentionally paired my phone with something was probably 2019, and that was only because my car's AUX cord died and I refused to drive in silence like some kind of psychopath. The screen showed a connection to something called C's AirPods. C's AirPods, Clara's AirPods, my wife's AirPods, which were apparently close enough to my car that my phone thought, hey, you know what would be fun? Let's ruin this guy's entire existence. Technology, man. It's like having a really efficient snitch living in your pocket. And that's when I heard it. Her laugh. Not the laugh she does at dinner parties when someone tells a joke that's about as funny as a root canal. Not the polite little chuckle she reserves for her mother's Facebook memes about wine and minions. No, this was the laugh. The real one. The one that sounds like pure, unfiltered joy. The kind she used to aim at me back when we first started dating and I'd do stupid impressions of action movie stars. Back when Netflix still mailed DVDs in those little red envelopes, and we'd spend entire Saturdays on the couch pretending we were going to watch something intellectual before inevitably choosing something with explosions. I hadn't heard that laugh in so long. I'd honestly forgotten she was capable of it. I thought maybe she'd surgically removed it along with her sense of humor somewhere around year 3 of our marriage. But there it was, crystal clear, coming through my car speakers like some kind of cosmic joke. And then came the voice. Male. Smooth in that way that makes you want to punch a wall. The kind of voice that probably practices saying actually in the mirror every morning. Confident. Smug. Familiar in a way that made my stomach drop faster than the stock market in 2008. Leo. Leo. Her ex-boyfriend Leo. The guy she swore was just a friend when he started texting her 6 months ago. The guy she claimed was helping her with some business networking stuff. Because apparently I'm supposed to believe that business networking happens at 10 p.m. on weeknights and requires that much emoji usage. Once he signs the house over for the tax benefits, Leo's voice said, and I could practically hear the smirk in his tone, we'll have everything we need to start our new life together. God, I can't wait to be done with that dog. They laughed. They laughed. That laugh, her real, genuine, haven't heard it in years laugh, was being used to celebrate calling me a dog. Not even a cool dog, like a wolf or a German shepherd. Just that dog. Generic. Replaceable. Probably the kind that pees on the carpet and chews up expensive shoes. I sat there in my car, holding my overpriced coffee like it was a grenade with the pin already pulled, and I'm pretty sure my brain just stopped. Like it blue-screened. Like it had too many tabs open and the whole system just said, nah, I'm out. The classic rock kept playing. Dave Grohl was singing about wanting something he could never have, which felt aggressively on the nose. A woman walked past my car, pushing a shopping cart full of organic produce and probably zero marital problems. My coffee was getting cold. Clara and Leo were still talking in my ear, discussing their future, my house, my money, their new life. Like I was some kind of obstacle course they'd already figured out how to navigate. I should have been furious. I should have driven straight to wherever she was, burst through the door like some kind of rom-com protagonist who'd finally grown a spine and demanded answers. I should have called a lawyer immediately. I should have thrown my phone out the window and screamed into the void. Instead, I did what any mature, emotionally stable, totally not having a breakdown man would do. I finished my coffee, even though it tasted like betrayal mixed with overpriced espresso beans. Calmly got out of my car, walked into Whole Foods, and bought a 12-pack of paper towels I absolutely did not need. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been older than 20 with a name tag that said Brandon, asked me if I wanted to donate to save the rainforest. I said yes and donated $5, because apparently even while my life was actively catching fire, I still cared about deforestation. As I walked back to my car, paper towels under my arm like some kind of domestic stability security blanket, a plan started forming in my head. It wasn't a good plan. It probably wasn't even a smart plan. But it was my plan. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing I knew. Instead, I'd keep pretending. I'd be the perfect husband, the obedient dog, the tax benefit signing chump they thought I was. For exactly 87 days. Why 87? Because 90 felt too neat, and I've never been good at round numbers. Plus, it gave me just enough time to prepare, to document, to build a case that would make their new life look like a clearance bin sitcom nobody wanted to watch. I got back in my car, put my phone on airplane mode so I wouldn't have to hear any more of their victory celebration, and drove home with my stupid paper towels and my new sense of purpose. That dog was about to learn some new tricks. Clara came home at 9:47 p.m., which I know because I'd started checking the time like a man waiting for test results he already knew would be bad. She walked through the door with this whole performance. Keys jangling, humming some tune I didn't recognize, probably something Leo had played for her in whatever sad little love nest they'd carved out of my ignorance. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Vanilla perfume. The expensive kind she saves for special occasions, which apparently now included betraying your husband on a Tuesday. It mixed with something else. Guilt, maybe, or whatever pheromone humans release when they're actively ruining someone's life. If they could bottle that scent, they'd call it Eau de Audacity and sell it at department stores next to the cologne that promises to make you irresistible to women who are definitely not your wife. I was sitting on our couch. The gray sectional sheet insisted we needed because it was mid-century modern, and I'd agreed to because I didn't want to have a 3-hour conversation about furniture, pretending to watch some documentary about penguins. I wasn't actually watching it. I was thinking about how penguins mate for life, which felt like the universe had a really twisted sense of humor about what to recommend on my streaming queue tonight. Hey, honey, I said, looking up with what I hoped was my normal face and not my, I know you're planning to steal my house and run off with your ex face. Those two expressions are surprisingly similar, by the way. Both involve smiling with your mouth while your eyes are screaming. She leaned down and I kissed her cheek, which took every ounce of self-control I didn't know I had. It was like kissing a stranger. Actually, it was like kissing someone who was actively robbing you, but pausing mid-heist to accept some casual affection. Her skin was warm, probably from whatever athletic activities she and Leo had been up to, and I had to resist the urge to ask if Book Club had started offering cardio classes. How was Book Club? I asked, keeping my voice light and casual, like a man who definitely didn't know his wife was lying through her recently whitened teeth. Oh, it was great, she said, already heading toward the bedroom to change. We discussed Tolstoy. Really dense stuff, but Margaret brought amazing wine, so that helped. Tolstoy. Clara saying she discussed Tolstoy was like our cat Mr. Whiskers claiming he'd solved a calculus problem. Actually, that's unfair to Mr. Whiskers. Texts, calls, receipts, suspicious, late client meetings. Become a forensic accountant of my own marriage. Make the FBI look lazy. 2. Pretend to fetch affection. Act like the good boy she thinks I am. Bring her coffee in the morning. Compliment her hair. Ask about her day like I'm not aware she's spending it plotting my financial ruin. Wag my metaphorical tail like my life depends on it, because it kind of does. 3. Don't bark until the right moment. Keep my mouth shut. Don't confront. Don't hint that I know. Save all the barking for day 87 when I can really sink my teeth into this situation. I stared at my list, feeling simultaneously proud and completely unhinged. This was my life now. I was a man making revenge to-do lists while his wife showered off evidence of her affair. If this were a movie, this would be the scene where inspirational music played and the protagonist looked determined. In reality, I was in my pajama pants eating stale tortilla chips and wondering if this was rock bottom or just a preview of the basement below rock bottom. The shower turned off. I quickly saved the document in a folder I labeled Tax Stuff 2024 because Clara would rather die than look at anything related to taxes voluntarily. Then I closed my laptop and returned to my penguin documentary, where at least some species on this planet understood commitment. Clara came out in her bathrobe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking comfortable and content in a way that made me want to scream into a pillow. "What are you watching?" she asked, sitting down next to me. "Penguins," I said. "Cute," she replied, already looking at her phone. Probably texting Leo about how oblivious her husband was. How easy this was going to be. How that stupid dog hadn't even noticed his leash was about to be handed to someone else. I waited until she went to bed, claiming she was exhausted from book club, which must have been code for emotionally drained from juggling 2 relationships and a fraud scheme. Before I pulled out my laptop again, I spent the next 2 hours researching divorce lawyers in our area. I read reviews like I was shopping for a surgeon, because in a way, I was. I needed someone who could surgically remove Clara from my life, while keeping all my vital organs, financial and otherwise, intact. That's when I found her. Daphne Vega. 5-star reviews across the board. Testimonials that read like movie taglines. "She destroyed my ex in court. Worth every penny. This woman is a shark in a blazer." Her profile picture showed a woman in her 40s with dark hair, sharp eyes, and a smile that suggested she'd seen every dirty divorce trick in the book and had probably invented a few herself. Her website had a contact form. I filled it out at 2:47 a.m., typing with the manic energy of a man who'd just discovered his wife was a cartoon villain. Subject: Need consultation ASAP. Message: My wife is planning to commit fraud, steal my house, and run off with her ex. I have evidence. I have 87 days. I need someone who can help me make sure the only thing she gets in the divorce is regret. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, closed my laptop, and went to bed next to my wife. The woman who'd promised to love and cherish me, but apparently read that as more of a suggestion than a binding contract. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Daphne Vega's office. She could see me at 10 a.m. I replied immediately, "I'll be there." At 9:55 a.m., I walked into her office building downtown, took the elevator to the 7th floor, and sat in a waiting room that smelled like leather and expensive legal revenge. When her assistant called my name, I followed him into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city that probably cost more per month than my car payment. Daphne Vega sat behind a desk that looked like it had witnessed 1,000 marriages die. She looked exactly like her picture. Sharp, professional, and slightly terrifying in the best possible way. "So," she said, folding her hands on her desk and looking at me with the intensity of someone who charged $400 an hour and earned every cent. "You want revenge or results?" I didn't even hesitate. "Both." She smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind of smile a chess player gives when they see checkmate 6 moves ahead. "Then here's what you're going to do," she said, leaning forward. "You're going to start acting dumber than you feel." Daphne's advice echoed in my head for the next 72 hours. Act dumber than you feel. Which, if I'm being honest, was simultaneously the easiest and hardest thing I'd ever been asked to do. Easy because I'd apparently been doing it for months without even realizing it. Hard because now I had to do it intentionally, with purpose, like method acting, except the role was oblivious husband who deserves a participation trophy. So I became husband of the goddamn year. Monday morning, I woke up before Clara, which never happens because I typically sleep like someone who's accepted defeat as a lifestyle choice, and made breakfast. Not cereal, not toast, actual breakfast. Scrambled eggs with chives, turkey bacon because she's been on some health kick since Leo probably told her she should optimize her wellness journey, or whatever meaningless phrase people use now instead of just saying diet. I even arranged fresh berries in a bowl like I was auditioning for a cooking show on basic cable. When Clara walked into the kitchen, she actually stopped and stared like I'd just performed a magic trick. "You made breakfast?" "Yeah," I said, channeling every bit of golden retriever energy I could muster. "Figured you could use something nice after all those late client meetings. You've been working so hard." The lie tasted worse than burnt toast, but I smiled through it. She looked genuinely touched, which would have been sweet if she wasn't actively planning to commit fraud. She kissed my cheek, the same cheek I'd been offering up like some kind of betrayal target practice, and sat down to eat. "You're the best," she said, and I swear to God, if irony could kill, we'd both be dead on the kitchen floor. Tuesday, I folded laundry. The entire basket. Matched every sock, which is basically a miracle because our dryer eats socks like they're an endangered delicacy. I even folded her delicate items, with the kind of care usually reserved for handling explosives, because apparently that's what a good husband does when his wife is sleeping with her ex and plotting real estate fraud. Wednesday, I complimented her shoes. "Those are really nice," I said, pointing at her new heels that probably cost more than our water bill. "They make you look tall." She beamed. Actually beamed. Like I'd just told her she'd won a Pulitzer for adultery. The whole time, I was watching, learning, documenting. Because while I was playing the role of America's most supportive spouse, Clara's phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree at a mall that peaked in the 90s. Every notification made this little ping sound that started to feel less like technology and more like the universe's way of reminding me I was married to a woman whose guilty conscience had its own ringtone. She'd placed her phone face down on the counter. Classic cheater move, by the way, but I could still hear it. Ping, ping, ping. It was like Chinese water torture, except instead of water, it was the slow drip of my marriage dissolving. Thursday evening, while she was in the shower, she'd been showering a lot lately, which I'm sure was totally unrelated to anything. I casually picked up her phone. She'd changed her passcode, which was adorable, like I hadn't watched her type it in roughly 8,000 times over the past 5 years. It used to be my birthday. Now it was. I tried a few combinations. Her birthday? No. Her mom's birthday? No. Then I tried it. 0-7-1-5. July 15th. Leo's birthday, which I only knew because she'd mentioned it once 3 years ago when explaining why she needed to send a friendly text to an ex. I'd thought nothing of it at the time because I was stupid and trusting and apparently auditioning for the role of guy who never sees it coming in the movie of my own life. The phone unlocked. Her messages loaded, and there it was. A contact saved as Carpet Guy. Carpet Guy? Let me repeat that for emphasis. She saved her secret lover as Carpet Guy, like some kind of home improvement professional who was here to discuss Shag versus Berber. I had to physically stop myself from laughing because if you're going to destroy someone's life, at least be creative about the deception. Carpet Guy is what you name someone when you have the imaginative capacity of a parking meter. I scrolled through their messages. Each one was worse than the last. Carpet Guy, miss you already. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Clara, soon. Once the house is transferred, we're free. He's so clueless it's almost sad. Carpet Guy, you sure he'll sign? Clara, please. I could get him to sign anything. He thinks I'm at book club right now, face with tears of joy. That emoji. That laughing emoji. She was laughing about how easy I was to manipulate while I was downstairs folding her underwear like some kind of domestic servant who'd lost all sense of self-respect. I took screenshots, sent them to my email, deleted the evidence that I'd sent them, put her phone back exactly where she'd left it, face down, like the ticking time bomb it was. When she came out of the shower, I was on the couch watching a home renovation show because the irony was too perfect to resist. "Hey babe," I said, all casual. "Did the Carpet Guy ever get back to you about that estimate?" I watched her face. She didn't even flinch. "Oh yeah," she said smoothly. "He said he'd have to come back next week. Scheduling conflict." "That's too bad," I replied. "I really think new carpet would improve the house value. You know, for tax purposes." She smiled. Sat down next to me. Put her head on my shoulder like we were still a couple who did things like casual couch cuddling instead of a husband and wife crime drama waiting to reach its season finale. Inside my head, my inner monologue was absolutely screaming. This woman thinks I'm an emotional Roomba, quiet, obedient, programmed to clean up her messes, and easily replaceable with a newer model when I stop working properly. But outside, I was the picture of calm. I even put my arm around her because Daphne had said to act normal, and normal me was apparently a doormat with a pulse. Friday, I offered to help her with taxes. Sat down at the dining room table with our laptop and a bunch of forms I'd printed out that morning, looking every bit like a man who was excited about the IRS and not at all like someone plotting his wife's downfall. You know, I said, clicking through TurboTax like I was genuinely interested. I was reading about married couples transferring property for tax benefits. Could save us a lot of money. Her eyes lit up. I'm not exaggerating. They lit up like I'd just told her she'd won the lottery, and also her ex-boyfriend was going to become even more insufferable, which apparently was her ideal Thursday night. Really? She said, trying to sound casual, but failing miserably. That's interesting. We should look into that. Definitely, I agreed. I'll do some research. Maybe talk to our accountant. I wouldn't talk to our accountant. I'd talk to my accountant. The one I'd hired separately, the one Clara didn't know about. The one who was helping me understand exactly how she was planning to screw me over so I could return the favor with interest. That weekend, Clara went to a late client meeting on Saturday afternoon. She said she'd be back by 6. I said, no problem, take your time. Like a husband who definitely wasn't tracking her phone's location through a shared family app she'd forgotten I had access to. She was at the Hilton downtown. Room 412. For 3 hours. I spent those 3 hours at my brother Eli's apartment, drinking beer and trying not to throw my phone through his TV when the location pin didn't move for 90-minute stretches. You okay? Eli asked, handing me another beer. Perfect, I lied. Just waiting for my wife to finish her meeting with Carpet Guy. Eli raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. He's good like that. Knows when to push and when to just sit in supportive silence while his brother's life implodes like a controlled demolition. Sunday, Clara came home cheerful, humming. She made dinner. Pasta, nothing fancy, and we ate together like a normal couple. She asked about my week. I asked about hers. She told elaborate stories about clients I knew didn't exist. I nodded along like a bobblehead that had accepted its purpose in life. After dinner, I excused myself to organize some files in our home office. Instead, I opened my laptop and added to my growing folder titled How to Train Your Dragon, Wife Edition, which now included 47 screenshots of texts between Clara and Carpet Guy, location data showing her at hotels during supposed work meetings, credit card statements I'd quietly obtained showing charges at restaurants we'd never been to together, voice memos she'd accidentally left in our shared cloud, including one where she and Leo discussed the timeline for their new beginning. Every piece of evidence was dated, organized, and backed up in 3 separate locations because I'd learned from watching true crime documentaries that the only thing worse than being betrayed is being betrayed and losing the evidence in a hard drive crash. By the end of week 2, I had enough material to write a book called My Wife is Committing Fraud, a Love Story. By the end of week 3, I perfected my performance. Oscar-worthy stuff. I could smile on command, laugh at her jokes, pretend to believe her lies with the dedication of a method actor who'd lost his grip on reality. And every single night, I crawled into bed next to her. This woman who I'd promised forever to, who'd promised the same to me, and pretended to sleep while my mind cataloged every new betrayal like a very depressing filing system. The dog was learning tricks, all right, just not the ones she expected. You know what nobody tells you about catching your wife in an affair? It's not the dramatic confrontation scenes from movies. It's not throwing plates or storming out in the rain. It's the weird, mundane moments, like sitting in a Starbucks at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday with your best friend Oscar, watching him hack into your wife's digital life, while you pretend to look at your phone so the barista doesn't think you're planning a heist. Oscar Chuen is the kind of guy who thinks privacy laws are more like gentle suggestions than actual legislation. He works in IT for some tech company downtown that I'm 70% sure is either revolutionary or a front for something questionable. I've never been able to figure out which. He's got the look, thick-framed glasses, perpetually wrinkled button-up shirts, and the energy of someone who's had 12 espressos but still seems weirdly calm about everything. If you needed someone to build you a robot or break into the Pentagon, Oscar would be your guy. He'd also probably do it while explaining why your choice of password was embarrassingly predictable. So let me get this straight, Oscar said, not looking up from his laptop, which had more stickers on it than a middle schooler's notebook. Your wife is cheating on you with a guy she saved as carpet guy, and you want me to clone her entire cloud backup so you can build a legal case against her before she steals your house. That's the gist of it. Yeah, I said, sipping my coffee that tasted like regret and caramel syrup. And you've been pretending you don't know for how long now? 3 weeks. 66 more days to go. Oscar finally looked up, blinking behind his glasses like I'd just told him I was planning to swim to Antarctica. Dude, that's the most psychotic thing I've ever heard. And I once watched a guy try to debug code for 17 hours straight without sleeping. Is that a yes or no on the cloud cloning? He grinned, the kind of grin that suggested he was absolutely going to help me because this was the most entertainment he'd had since someone tried to hack his gaming account, and he'd spent 3 days tracking them down just to send them a strongly worded email about their terrible encryption. Obviously, it's a yes. Give me your login credentials. I slid a piece of paper across the table with Clara's email and the password I'd figured out last week when she'd asked me to check her email for a confirmation from her dentist. The password was Leo and Clara 2024. I'm not even kidding. She might as well have named it Evidence of My Affair and saved everyone some time. Oscar typed for maybe 90 seconds, his fingers moving across the keyboard like he was playing a very aggressive piano concerto. Jesus Christ, her security is terrible, he muttered. She's got two-factor authentication turned off. She's using the same password for like 6 different accounts. And, oh wow, she's got her location sharing on permanently. Does she want to get caught? Is this some kind of cry for help? I think she just genuinely believes I'm too stupid to check, I said, which was probably the most honest thing I'd said all week. Well, you're about to become a digital surveillance expert, my friend. Oscar's screen filled with folders, documents, and what appeared to be Clara's entire digital existence since 2019. Okay, I'm downloading everything. Photos, documents, messages, calendar entries, the works. Should take about 10 minutes. In the meantime, want to tell me why you're waiting 87 days instead of just divorcing her now like a normal person? I explained Daphne's strategy. Let Clara think she's winning. Let her commit to the fraud, gather ironclad evidence, then strike when she's most confident. Oscar nodded along like I was describing a complicated video game strategy, which I guess this kind of was. Except instead of losing points, I was losing my faith in marriage and humanity. Diabolical, he said, sounding genuinely impressed. I like it. Very chess move thinking. Very let them eat cake and then present them with the bill. His laptop beeped. Done. You now have a complete backup of your wife's digital life. I've encrypted it and stored it in 3 separate secure locations. Even if she deletes everything tomorrow, you've got copies. He closed his laptop and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy or might have been morbid fascination. Want to look through it now? Or do you want to maintain plausible deniability for a few more hours? Now, I said, because apparently I was the kind of person who wanted to ruin his own day before lunch. We moved to Oscar's apartment, a studio that looked like Best Buy had exploded inside it, complete with 3 monitors, gaming chairs, and a very judgmental cat named Algorithm who watched us from atop a tower of servers. Oscar pulled up Clara's photo library, and we started scrolling. Most of it was boring. Selfies, food pics, screenshots of recipes she'd never make. But then, around the 2-month-ago mark, we found it. A photo of Clara and Leo on a boat. A boat. She's wearing a white sundress. He's got his arm around her waist, and they're both holding champagne glasses with the sunset behind them like they're filming a commercial for infidelity. The caption read, "Tax-free sunsets with my favorite person, Sunrise Red Heart. Tax-free sunsets. Tax-free sunsets." That might be the most pretentious thing I've ever read, Oscar said. And I once read a Tech Bros Medium article about how cryptocurrency was going to save humanity. I stared at the photo, feeling something between rage and the kind of laugh you do when you're so far past normal emotions that you've entered a new psychological dimension. She used a sunset emoji, I said. She's planning to commit fraud, and she used a sunset emoji. At least she's consistent with her brand, Oscar offered. Terrible person, basic taste in emojis. We found more photos. Clara and Leo at restaurants I couldn't afford. Clara and Leo at what appeared to be a weekend getaway to Napa Valley during a weekend she'd told me she was at a work conference. Clara and Leo looking at houses, actual houses, with a realtor apparently already planning where they'd live once they'd successfully stolen mine. Each photo felt like a small punch to the kidney. Not enough to knock you down, but enough that you're very aware you've been hit and you're going to feel it tomorrow. You okay? Oscar asked, which was nice of him considering I was actively watching evidence of my marriage dissolving in real time on his gaming monitor. Fantastic, I lied. Really living my best life right now. That evening, I went home and did something I'd been avoiding. I talked to my neighbor Maya. Maya Rodriguez is 67, recently retired from a 40-year career as an accountant, and the kind of person who knows everyone's business in our neighborhood because she sits on her porch with wine and just observes. She's like a surveillance camera, except she offers commentary and sometimes brings you cookies. I'd always liked her in a casual, wave when you see her kind of way, but now I needed her professionally. I found her on her porch, predictably, with a glass of red wine and a book she wasn't really reading because she was too busy watching Mrs. Patterson across the street try to parallel park, which was always entertaining in a slow-motion disaster kind of way. Maya, I said, walking up to her porch, can I ask you something about taxes? She looked at me over her reading glasses with the expression of someone who'd been waiting her entire retirement for someone to ask her about taxes. Is this about your wife's plan to transfer your house? I stopped walking. How did you? Honey, I've been watching Clara meet with that man, Leo, right? For 3 months now. They're about as subtle as a car alarm at 3 a.m. Plus, she asked me about property transfer tax implications 6 weeks ago. Said it was hypothetical. Maya sipped her wine. Nothing about that conversation was hypothetical. Sit down. Let's talk. I sat. She poured me wine without asking if I wanted any, which I appreciated because I absolutely did. Here's what she's doing, Maya said, her voice taking on the tone of someone explaining a complex math problem to a particularly slow student. She's going to convince you to transfer the house into her name for tax benefits. She'll say it's to avoid estate taxes or capital gains or some other legitimate-sounding reason. Once the house is in her name, she'll either sell it out from under you or force you out and keep it for herself and her boyfriend. Either way, you lose the house and probably a chunk of money in the process. I struggled for words. That's incredibly illegal, right? Oh, extremely, Maya said cheerfully. But it works more often than you'd think because people trust their spouses. They sign papers without reading them. They believe that their partner has their best interests at heart. She looked at me meaningfully. But you're smarter than that, aren't you? I'm trying to be, I said. I've got a lawyer. I'm gathering evidence. I'm trying to figure out how to survive the next 63 days without losing my mind. Maya patted my hand with the casual confidence of someone who'd seen this story play out 100 times. Honey, she's not after tax benefits. She's after the whole bone. The house, the money, probably your retirement accounts if she can figure out how to access them. Women like Clara and men like Leo, they see marriage as a business transaction. And right now, you're the asset they're liquidating. I took a long drink of wine. That's the worst thing anyone's ever said to me, and I once had a doctor tell me I had the spine posture of a question mark. She laughed, a real, genuine laugh that somehow made the whole situation feel slightly less apocalyptic. You're going to be fine, she said. You're already 10 steps ahead of her, and she doesn't even know it. Just keep playing the good husband for 2 more months. Let her think she's won. Then, she made a gesture like she was pulling a rug out from under someone. Surprise. I went home that night feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Small, fragile, probably going to get crushed again hope, but hope nonetheless. Clara was already asleep when I got back, or pretending to be, which was fine because I wasn't ready to perform for her yet. I sat in our home office, opened my laptop, and looked at all the evidence I'd collected. Day 23 of Operation Golden Retrieval, and the dog was learning exactly where all the bones were buried. Day 42 of Operation Golden Retrieval arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train made of red flags. I was making coffee, my new morning routine that involved pretending I enjoyed domesticity while internally screaming, when Clara walked into the kitchen with a stack of papers and the kind of smile that I'd learned meant she was about to ask for something that would benefit literally anyone except me. Morning, Babe, she said, setting the papers on the counter next to my coffee mug. I've been thinking. Nothing good has ever followed those 3 words. I've been thinking is what people say right before they suggest timeshares, pyramid schemes, or in this case, updating your will so your cheating wife can cash in when you conveniently die. We should update our wills, she continued, like she'd just suggested we try a new brunch spot instead of planning for my hypothetical demise. I was talking to Margaret from book club, Margaret, who definitely existed and wasn't just a cover story for her affair, and she said it's really important for married couples to have updated estate plans. You know, for tax purposes. Tax purposes. Everything was about tax purposes lately. If I had $1 for every time Clara mentioned taxes, I could probably pay the taxes on the house she was trying to steal. That's thoughtful, I said, because Daphne had coached me on responses that sounded agreeable without actually committing to anything. We should definitely look into that. Her face brightened like I'd just agreed to donate a kidney. Great. I already made appointments with an estate attorney for next week. Of course she did. She'd probably already drafted the will herself. Everything goes to Clara, who is definitely not planning to murder her husband in his sleep. No, seriously, officer. It was natural causes. He just stopped breathing coincidentally right after signing everything over to me. Sounds perfect, I said, making a mental note to call Daphne immediately and ask if updating our wills was code for accelerating your financial murder. Clara kissed my cheek, the same cheek that was developing a permanent flinch response, and disappeared to get ready for work, which I knew meant a 10 a.m. coffee date with Leo, because I'd checked her calendar while she was in the shower. They were meeting at that pretentious place downtown that serves $8 lattes and calls itself a coffee collective, like caffeine is a communist movement. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table and updated my journal. A leather notebook I'd bought specifically for documenting my descent into whatever psychological state I currently occupied. The entry for day 42 read, "Wife still actively planning my downfall. Now wants to update wills. Romantic gesture level, mortician. Husband still playing role of oblivious golden retriever. Getting really good at fetch. Someone should give me a treat. Preferably alcohol. Day 53 brought a new circle of hell. Leo invited me to golf." The text came through at 8 a.m. "Hey man, want to hit the link Saturday? Been meaning to catch up." I stared at my phone like it had just asked me to join a cult. Leo wanted to play golf with me. The man who was sleeping with my wife, planning to steal my house, and had probably never paid for his own coffee in his entire smug existence, wanted to spend 4 hours with me on a golf course pretending we were buddies. I showed the text to Oscar over lunch at a taco truck that parked near his office. He read it, looked at me, and said, "You're going to say yes, aren't you?" "Obviously. You're insane." "I'm thorough," I corrected. "There's a difference. Besides, Daphne said I should act normal, and normal me would probably say yes because I'm a doormat who doesn't know his wife's boyfriend is asking him to golf." Oscar bit into his taco, thinking, okay, but counterpoint. What if he murders you on the golf course? Like, makes it look like an accident? Oops, drove the golf cart off a cliff. So sad. Here's your house, Clara. That's actually a solid plan, I admitted. But I don't think Leo's that smart. He saved himself as carpet guy in my wife's phone. That's not the work of a criminal mastermind. Saturday came. I met Leo at the country club he belonged to, because of course he belonged to a country club. The kind of place where everyone wore pastel colors and talked about their stock portfolios between shots. Leo was waiting at the first tee, looking like a Ralph Lauren ad had come to life. Polo shirt, khaki shorts. One of those visors that only look good on professional golfers, and somehow everyone still wears them. "Hey, buddy." He clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends, and not two guys sharing the same woman without one of us knowing about it. "Great day for golf, right?" "Perfect," I said, gripping my golf club a little too tightly and imagining alternative uses for it that definitely weren't USI approved. We played 18 holes. 18 holes. That's approximately 4 hours of listening to Leo talk about himself, which felt like a masterclass in human narcissism. He bragged about his consulting business, his investment portfolio, his life philosophy, and his commitment to living authentically, which apparently meant sleeping with other people's wives while discussing ethics. "You know what I believe?" he said on the 7th hole, lining up a putt he'd definitely miss. I believe in radical honesty. People should just say what they feel, you know? No games. No pretending. The irony was so thick I could have used it as a golf ball. This man, this man, was lecturing me about honesty while actively participating in the longest con of my adult life, and I had to stand there nodding like he was Aristotle instead of a walking Cialis commercial. That's a great philosophy, I said. Really admirable. He missed the putt by 3 feet. By the 15th hole, he was telling me about how important it was to invest in relationships and build genuine connections, and I was seriously considering whether prison time for assault with a golf club would be worth it. Probably not, but the thought was comforting. We finished the round. He won by 6 strokes because apparently God has a sick sense of humor, and shook hands like civilized men who weren't enemies. We should do this more often, Leo said. It's good to have solid guy friends, you know? Absolutely, I agreed. Nothing better than male bonding. I drove home, gripping my steering wheel and practicing the deep breathing exercises my therapist had taught me before I'd stopped going to therapy because I couldn't afford the copays anymore after Clara redecorated our living room. Day 60 brought the moment I'd been dreading and somehow also expecting. Clara called me Leo in bed. We weren't even doing anything. Just lying there, watching some Netflix show about baking that neither of us cared about. She was scrolling through her phone, probably texting the actual Leo about how boring her fake life with her husband was, and I was pretending to care about whether someone's souffle would rise. Leo, can you turn up the volume? She said, not even looking up from her phone. The room went silent. Not the peaceful kind of silent. The kind of silent that happens right before someone crashes a car or drops an expensive plate. The kind of silent that has weight. I could have confronted her. Could have said, "Excuse me? Did you just call me your boyfriend's name?" Could have started the whole endgame right there. Day 60, ahead of schedule, burned the whole plan because my pride couldn't take another second. Instead, I turned up the volume. Didn't say a word. Just reached for the remote, increased the volume by 3 notches, and went back to watching some guy stress about buttercream frosting. Clara didn't even notice. Didn't catch her mistake. Just kept scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious that she'd just called her husband by her lover's name, and he'd pretended not to hear it. Therapists probably have a term for that kind of restraint. I call it survival. That night, I added to my journal. Day 60, wife called me Leo. Pretended not to hear it. This is fine. Everything is fine. I'm fine. The dog is fine. We're all fine. Only 27 days until this nightmare ends, and I can stop pretending I didn't hear my wife say another man's name in our bed. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. The entries got more unhinged as the days went on. Day 61. Wife still evil. Husband still pretending to be dumb. Cat still judging everyone. Mr. Whiskers might be the only honest one in this house. Day 64. Made her favorite dinner. She said I was so thoughtful. I am not thoughtful. I am documenting. There's a difference. Day 67. Leo texted her, "Miss your smile," and she blushed. Blushed. I was sitting right there. This is my life now. Day 70. 17 days left. 17 days until I can stop acting like a man who enjoys his own humiliation. 17 days until Clara learns that this dog has teeth. The countdown wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about sanity. About how long a person could maintain a performance before they either won an Oscar or had a complete psychological breakdown in a Costco parking lot. I was determined to make it to day 87, even if it killed me, which, given Clara's interest in updating our wills, was becoming a legitimate concern. You ever see those nature documentaries where the prey animal pretends to be injured to lure the predator closer? That's what I became around day 72. Except instead of limping dramatically across the savannah, I was leaving my phone unlocked on the kitchen counter with Google searches like how to transfer a house title between spouses for tax benefits, open in Safari. It was almost too easy. Embarrassingly easy. The kind of easy that made me wonder if Clara had always been this predictable or if I'd just never paid attention before. Probably both. Marriage has a way of making you complacent. Like you're so comfortable, you stop noticing when your partner starts acting like a Bond villain with a worse disguise. I'd left my phone there deliberately, screen facing up, brightness at maximum, practically glowing like a beacon of stupidity, while I went to grab the mail. I was actually standing in the hallway, watching through the crack in the door like some kind of suburban spy who'd peaked in mediocrity. Clara walked into the kitchen, saw the phone. did that thing where she looked around to make sure no one was watching, which was hilarious because I was literally watching her. Then she picked it up. Her face went through this whole journey of emotions: curiosity, excitement, satisfaction, and finally that smug little smile that I'd started to recognize as her "I'm getting away with it" expression. She took a photo of my search history with her own phone. Actually photographed the evidence of my supposed ignorance like she was documenting an archaeological discovery. Found it, Dr. Jones. The ancient ruins of my husband's brain cell. She put my phone back, smoothed her hair, and went back to whatever she was doing like she hadn't just fallen for bait, so obvious it should have come with a cartoon ACME label. I waited 30 seconds, walked back into the kitchen, and said, "Hey, babe, found anything interesting?" She jumped slightly. Guilty conscience is a hell of a drug. Then recovered with that practiced smile. "Nope, just making tea. Want some?" "Sure," I said, sitting down at the counter and watching her pour hot water like she was performing surgery. "I've been doing some research, actually, about property transfers. For tax purposes." I swear I saw her pupils dilate, like a shark that just smelled blood in the water. "Oh yeah. Yeah, apparently married couples can transfer property between each other and avoid certain taxes. Could save us a lot of money." I paused for effect, playing the role of helpful husband who definitely doesn't know he's being scammed. "I was thinking we should talk to our accountant about it." She practically vibrated with excitement. "That's such a good idea. You're so smart to think of that." The audacity, the sheer, unfiltered audacity of calling me smart for falling into her trap. It was like watching a cartoon villain compliment the hero for walking into their obvious snare. "Thanks," I said, accepting the tea she handed me. "I just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to optimize our finances. You know, for our future." "Our future," she repeated, and the way she said it made it clear she was thinking about a future that involved Leo's expensive boat and my money. She kissed my cheek, the famous betrayal cheek, which was developing calluses at this point, and said, "You're such a good man." I smiled, looked her right in her lying eyes, and said, in the most sincere voice I could manage, "Yeah, I get that a lot from people who are about to rob me blind." Her face froze for half a second, this micro-expression of panic, before she laughed it off like I'd made a joke. "You're so funny," she said, walking away. "Funny, right? Hilarious." I was basically a one-man comedy show titled, "Watch this idiot pretend he doesn't know his life is falling apart." Streaming now on the Mental Breakdown Network. That afternoon, I had a meeting with Daphne at her office. She'd requested I come in for what she called a strategy session, which sounded official and important and made me feel like I was planning a military operation instead of just trying to divorce my wife without losing everything I owned. Her office still smelled like expensive leather and the tears of cheating spouses. She sat behind her desk looking like she'd already won my case and was just waiting for everyone else to catch up. "So," she said, pulling out a folder that had gotten noticeably thicker since our first meeting, "your wife is taking the bait." Like a starving fish at an all-you-can-eat buffet, I confirmed. "Good. Here's what we're going to do." She laid out several documents on her desk with the precision of someone dealing cards. "You're not going to sign anything, but you're going to let her believe you will. You're going to string this along until day 87. Let her commit to the fraud completely. Let her think she's won. Then we hit her with divorce papers, evidence of the affair, documentation of attempted fraud, and a property settlement that ensures you keep everything. Can we do that? Legally. Not only can we do it, we're going to do it. She's the one committing fraud. You're just defending yourself." Daphne leaned forward, and I understood why her reviews called her a shark. "While she's planning to steal your house, we're going to make sure she leaves this marriage with nothing but regret and possibly legal fees." I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Genuine joy. The kind of joy you get when you realize the universe might actually have a sense of justice, even if it takes 3 months and a lawyer who charges enough per hour to feed a small village. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Keep playing dumb. But also, and this is important, start protecting your assets now. Open a new bank account she doesn't know about. Transfer funds gradually so she doesn't notice. We're also going to quietly list your house for conditional sale under your name only." "Can I do that?" "It's marital property. You're both on the deed. Either spouse can list it. She's planning to transfer it into her name fraudulently. We're going to sell it legitimately and ensure you get your share. It's called being proactive. She smiled. Think of it as offensive defense. Over the next week, I became a financial ninja. Opened a new checking account at a different bank across town. Started transferring small amounts. $200 here, $500 there. Nothing big enough to trigger alerts, but enough that by day 87, I'd have a safety net she couldn't touch. I even opened a separate savings account and moved half our emergency fund into it, because if this wasn't an emergency, I didn't know what was. I contacted a real estate agent named Marcus, recommended by Daphne, naturally, who agreed to list our house discreetly. Conditional sale, he explained over the phone, means it won't go on the market officially until you give the word. But we'll have all the paperwork ready, professional photos taken, the whole 9 yards. When you're ready to pull the trigger, we can have it listed within hours. How soon can we start? I asked. I can have a photographer there tomorrow if the wife won't be home. Clara had a late client meeting, code for afternoon delight with Leo, scheduled for the next day. Tomorrow works perfectly. The photographer came, took pictures of every room, made our house look like something from a magazine instead of the crime scene of a dying marriage. He was done in 90 minutes. Clara never knew. Meanwhile, Clara and Leo kept their text thread going like they were writing the world's most predictable romance novel. Oscar had set up a system where their messages automatically forwarded to a secure server, so I had real-time updates on their stupidity. Carpet guy. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Just a few more weeks. Clara, I know. He's already researching property transfers. This is going to be so easy. Carpet guy. You sure he's not suspicious? Clara, please. He's like a golden retriever. Loyal, trusting, and not smart enough to see what's right in front of him. I read that message while sitting in my car outside a grocery store, and I laughed. Actually laughed out loud like a person who'd finally lost it. Some lady walking past with her shopping cart looked at me like I was about to either rob the place or start preaching about aliens. I texted Oscar. They called me a golden retriever again. Oscar, at least they're consistent. Me. 20 days until this retriever bites back. Oscar, that's the spirit. Want to get tacos later? Me, obviously. Day 80 rolled around, and Clara was practically glowing. She hummed while cooking, actual humming, like a Disney princess, except the song was about fraud instead of true love. She texted Leo with emojis that would make a teenager cringe. Heart eyes. Champagne bottles. That little house emoji that I'm pretty sure represented my house they were planning to steal. I started giving everyone in this nightmare pet names in my head, just to maintain my sanity. Clara, CEO of Bad Decisions. Leo, Mr. Tax Benefit, or alternatively, that carpet guy. Daphne, Angel of Legal Death. Oscar, Tech Wizard of Doom. Maya, Wine Mom Oracle. Mr. Whiskers, the only honest soul in this house. I even practiced my confrontation speech in the bathroom mirror, which is definitely something stable people do. Surprise. I'm not a dog. I'm the owner of the house, the account, and your complete downfall. No, too dramatic. Hey Clara, remember how you thought I was stupid? Plot twist, I'm not. Too casual. Woof woof, bitch. The dog learned new tricks. Perfect. Unhinged, but perfect. Day 87 was 1 week away. 7 days until I could stop pretending. 7 days until Clara and Leo's new life became a new nightmare. 7 days until the golden retriever finally, stopped fetching and started fighting back. I could almost taste the freedom. It tasted like vindication and probably some really expensive whiskey I was going to buy myself as a congrats on not getting defrauded present. 1 more week. Just 1 more week of being the good, dumb, loyal husband. Then the performance would end, and the real show would begin. Day 80 felt different. Like when you're watching a horror movie and you know the jump scare is coming, but you still can't look away. Except in this version, I was both the audience and the guy about to jump out from behind the door, and Clara was the unsuspecting teenager who thought she was winning the game. She woke up that morning practically radiating victory. I'm talking full-blown, I've already won energy. She made breakfast, actual breakfast, not her usual grab a protein bar and run routine, and hummed while doing it. The humming was what really got me. It was this cheerful, off-key melody that sounded like what I imagined Disney villains hum while plotting in their lairs, except instead of a castle, it's a suburban kitchen with granite countertops we'd gone into debt to afford. What's got you in such a good mood? I asked, playing my role as oblivious husband #2. 847 in the long-running series called My Life is a joke. Oh, nothing specific, she said, flipping a pancake with the confidence of someone who thought they'd successfully conned their spouse. Just feeling grateful, you know? We have such a good life together. Together. She used that word like it meant something. Like we were actually a team instead of a magician and her assistant, except the assistant didn't know the magic trick involved making his assets disappear. We do. I agreed, pouring syrup on my pancakes that I absolutely did not want to eat. I'm lucky to have you. The words tasted worse than the time I accidentally drank spoiled milk, but I said them with a smile that I'd perfected over 80 days of advanced lying. I should have gotten a LinkedIn certification in deception by now. Skills: Microsoft Excel, project management, pretending my wife isn't committing fraud, expert level. After breakfast, I checked my phone and saw she'd sent Leo a text at 6:47 a.m., before I'd even woken up. The message had auto-forwarded to my secret email, courtesy of Oscar's technical wizardry and complete disregard for federal privacy laws. Clara, 7 more days. I can barely contain myself. This is actually happening. Carpet guy. I know, baby. Soon we'll be in our new place, living our real life. No more pretending. No more pretending. The irony was so thick I could have used it to pave a driveway. They were talking about not pretending while I'd been running the longest con of my life for almost 3 months. If there was an Olympic sport for emotional deception, I'd be standing on a podium wearing gold. Day 81. Clara started talking about our future plans with the enthusiasm of someone who'd already mentally moved into a different house with a different man. We were having dinner, takeout Chinese, because she was too excited about life to cook, and she started describing this cabin in Lake Tahoe she'd found online. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a vacation? Home, she said, showing me pictures on her phone of a cabin that probably cost more than our current mortgage. We could go there on weekends, really disconnect from everything. By we, she meant her and Leo. By disconnect, she meant disconnect me from my money and property. I nodded along like a dashboard bobblehead, saying things like, that sounds nice, and we should definitely look into that, while internally screaming into the void that used to be my faith in humanity. Day 82, she came home with new luggage. Expensive luggage. The kind you buy when you're planning a significant trip or, in her case, a whole new life. She said it was on sale, which was Clara's go-to excuse for any purchase she didn't want to justify. That woman could buy a yacht and claim it was on sale, like that made it reasonable. Planning a trip? I asked innocently, watching her wheel the pristine suitcases into our bedroom. Oh, you know, just thought we could use an upgrade, she said. Our old luggage is falling apart. Our old luggage was fine. We'd used it maybe 4 times in the past year. But sure, we needed new luggage for the trip she was planning without me, to the life she was building with someone else, using the money she was planning to steal. Totally reasonable. Nothing suspicious here. Day 83 brought the most absurd development yet. Clara asked if I'd be okay with her taking a girls' trip the weekend after our tax meeting. Said she needed time to decompress with friends. Of course, I said, because what else was I going to say? No. Honey, you can't go on your fake girls' trip that's actually a romantic getaway with your boyfriend to celebrate successfully committing fraud. You're the best, she said, kissing me on the lips this time instead of the cheek. Promotion. I'd moved from cheek kiss status to lip kiss status, probably because she was feeling generous about her impending victory. I smiled through it, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth for 5 minutes straight, and then texted Daphne. She's planning a trip for right after the tax meeting. A girls' trip. Daphne responded within 30 seconds. LOL. Document everything. This is going to be the easiest case I've ever won. Day 84, Sunday. Clara spent 3 hours on the phone with someone she claimed was her mother. I knew it wasn't her mother because her mother has a very specific ringtone, some country song about trucks that drives me insane, and this call came through without any ringtone at all. FaceTime. She was FaceTiming someone while locked in our bedroom. When she came out, she looked flushed and happy, like someone who'd just had phone sex or discussed real estate fraud in detail. Possibly both. The beautiful thing about Clara's affair was how spectacularly bad she was at hiding it. It was like watching someone try to conceal an elephant by throwing a napkin over it. Everything okay? I asked. Great, she said, too enthusiastically. Mom says hi. Tell her I said hi back. I replied. knowing full well her mom was probably at church doing her Sunday routine and had no idea her daughter was speedrunning the 7 deadly sins. Day 85, I had my final meeting with Daphne. We sat in her office, which I'd come to think of as my second home. If your home was a place where you plotted legal warfare and went over every single detail of the plan. Tomorrow, you'll act completely normal, she instructed, sliding a folder across her desk. Wednesday morning, day 87. Clara will expect you both to go to the tax office. Instead, you'll have already moved your essential belongings to your brother's place. At 9 a.m., you'll be here signing the final divorce documents. At 11 a.m., we'll serve her. Divorce papers. At your house. With a process server who's very good at his job and has seen everything. She smiled. By the time she realizes what's happening, the house will be listed, your assets will be protected, and she'll be facing the reality that her plan failed spectacularly. What about Leo? I took the liberty of having someone compile information on his business practices. Turns out consulting is generous. He's been involved in several questionable financial schemes. If your wife wants to tie her life to that sinking ship, that's her choice. But she won't be doing it with your money. I left Daphne's office feeling something between terror and exhilaration. Like someone who'd just jumped out of a plane and wasn't sure if the parachute was going to open, but was committed to the fall anyway. Day 86. The day before everything. Clara was insufferable. She cleaned the house top to bottom, which she never did. She was literally humming while vacuuming, like some kind of deranged housewife from a 1950s commercial, except the product she was selling was betrayal. Big day tomorrow, she said over dinner, which she'd actually cooked. Salmon and asparagus, my favorite, which felt like a condemned man's last meal except I was the one who'd built the gallows. Yeah, I said. Really big day. She had no idea how right she was. No clue that big day didn't mean day we commit fraud together, but rather day your entire scheme collapses like a house of cards in a hurricane. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed next to Clara, who slept peacefully, probably dreaming about lake houses and freedom from her stupid husband, and stared at the ceiling counting down the hours. At 2 a.m., I got up, went to the kitchen, and made a cup of coffee I didn't need. Mr. Whiskers found me there, sitting at the counter in the dark like a movie villain monologuing to nobody. He jumped up next to me, meowed once, probably asking what the hell I was doing, and I scratched behind his ears. Tomorrow, I told him, the dog finally bites back. He purred, either in approval or because cats don't understand English, and he just liked being petted. Either way, it felt like support. I pulled out my phone and looked at all the evidence I compiled. 86 days worth of screenshots, recordings, documents, bank statements, location data, text messages. It was beautiful in a devastating sort of way. A masterpiece of betrayal, fully documented, ready to be presented in court. I'd started this journey thinking I was a victim. A stupid, trusting husband who'd gotten played. But somewhere around day 40, I'd realized something. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the hunter. The prey had learned to hunt back, and tomorrow was hunting season. At 6 a.m., Clara's alarm went off. She bounced out of bed with energy I hadn't seen since our honeymoon, back when she was still pretending to love me for real instead of strategically. Big day, she announced, like we were going to Disneyland and not to commit financial crimes. Huge, I agreed, smiling my practice smile. Absolutely huge. She had no idea. Day 87 started with Clara making avocado toast, which felt like the universe had developed a sense of irony so advanced it should have been studied by scientists. Here was my wife, preparing the most millennial breakfast possible, humming some pop song about love and happiness, completely unaware that in approximately 4 hours, her entire world was going to detonate like a financial atomic bomb. Don't forget the tax meeting at 2, she called out from the kitchen, her voice practically singing with anticipation. I've got all the paperwork ready. This is going to be so good for us. Wouldn't dream of missing it, I said, tying my shoes with the calm of a man who'd spent 86 days preparing for this exact moment. My hands weren't even shaking. Somewhere along this journey, I'd transformed from anxious husband to cold-blooded revenge planner, and honestly, the career change suited me. Clara brought me the avocado toast with a smile that probably looked loving to anyone who wasn't aware she'd been planning to commit fraud. You're going to love what this does for our future, she said, and I had to physically restrain myself from laughing. I'm sure I will, I replied, biting into toast that tasted like vindication with a hint of sea salt. At 9 a.m. sharp, while Clara was in the shower preparing for what she thought would be her victory lap, I texted my brother Eli. I'm heading over now. He responded immediately, doors unlocked, beers in the fridge. Can't wait to hear how this goes. I'd already moved most of my important stuff to Eli's apartment over the past week. Clothes, documents, my grandfather's watch, Mr. Whisker's favorite toys because yes, I was keeping the cat. I'd been doing it gradually, taking bags in my car trunk and dropping them off while Clara was at her late client meetings. She never noticed because she was too busy planning her new life to pay attention to the old one falling apart. The only things left in the house were furniture, kitchen stuff, and Clara's mountain of lies. She could keep the furniture. I'd memorized every text message. At 9:47 a.m., I walked into Daphne's office for the last time as a married man. She was waiting with a stack of documents that looked like they could end a small government, and she had that shark smile that I'd learned to associate with imminent legal destruction. Ready? She asked. I've been ready since day one, I said. Let's do this. I signed 6 documents in total. Divorce papers, asset protection agreements, a restraining order if necessary. Daphne's idea said it was standard procedure for cases involving fraud. Property settlement agreements that ensured the house would be sold and I'd get my fair share. A statement for the police, just in case Clara decided to escalate things legally. Each signature felt like freedom. Like I was autographing my own Emancipation Proclamation, except instead of freeing slaves, I was freeing myself from a woman who'd called me a dog and meant it as an insult. The process server will deliver these to her at 1 p.m., Daphne explained, right before her fake tax meeting. I've also taken the liberty of having someone alert Leo simultaneously, just so they can panic together. It's more efficient. You're an artist, I told her. I'm expensive, she corrected. But yes, also an artist. By 11 a.m., I was at Eli's apartment, sitting on his couch that smelled like bachelor pad and poor life choices, watching the clock like it held the secrets to the universe. Eli handed me a beer even though it wasn't even noon, because some moments transcend appropriate drinking hours. You really did it, he said, sounding somewhere between impressed and concerned for my mental health. 87 days of playing dumb. That's commitment. Or insanity, I offered. Probably both. What are you going to say to her? I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and showed him the message I drafted at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. I know about you and Leo. I've known for 87 days. Been playing the perfect dog while you plan to steal my house. Don't bother showing up to the tax office. Those aren't transfer papers you're about to sign. They're divorce papers. The house is being sold. The accounts are protected. And just so we're clear, woof. Eli read it, looked at me, and started laughing. Woof? You're ending it with woof? I'm reclaiming the dog metaphor, I explained. It's symbolic. It's unhinged, he corrected. I love it. At 1:27 p.m., I sent 2 text messages that had taken 87 days to write. To Clara, I know about you and Leo. I've known for 87 days. Been playing the perfect dog while you plan to steal my house. Don't bother showing up to the tax office. Those aren't transfer papers. They're divorce papers. The house is being sold. The accounts are protected. And just so we're clear, woof. To Leo, hope the kennel's comfy. My lawyer will be in touch about your role in the attempted fraud. Enjoy your new life with Clara. She's all yours. You deserve each other. Then I turned off my phone. Just powered it down completely because I didn't want to hear the explosion. I wanted to enjoy lunch with my brother in peace while Clara and Leo's world collapsed like a controlled demolition. How do you feel? Eli asked, ordering us burgers from some delivery app that was probably stealing our data but had excellent fries. Honestly, I took a long drink of beer. I feel free. Like someone just removed a backpack full of rocks I'd been carrying for 3 years. Or maybe longer. I don't know when exactly our marriage died, but it's been a corpse for a while, and I've been dragging it around pretending it was still alive. That's dark, man. It's been a dark 87 days. We ate burgers, watched basketball. Eli told me about his dating disasters, which made my marriage implosion seem almost reasonable by comparison. At some point, Mr. Whiskers emerged from the bedroom where I'd set up his stuff, judged both of us silently, and went back to sleep. Around 7 p.m., I finally turned my phone back on. The screen lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Notifications flooded in so fast my phone actually lagged. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, emails, even a Facebook message from Clara's mother asking if I was okay. 142 missed calls. 142. 73 text messages. 19 voicemails. I scrolled through the messages, watching Clara's emotional journey in real time. 1:32 p.m. What are you talking about? Call me. 1:45 p.m. This isn't funny. Where are you? 2:03 p.m. A process server just came to the house. 2:15 p.m. Are you serious right now? We need to talk. 2:47 p.m. Please. Let's just talk about this. I can explain everything. 3:30 p.m. You're making a huge mistake. We can work this out. 4:15 p.m. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Please, can we talk? 5:03 p.m. You can't just throw away our marriage like this. 6:20 p.m. Fine. Be that way. You're going to regret this. 6:45 p.m. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry. Please call me. The voicemails range from angry to desperate to bargaining to more anger to crying. I listened to exactly one. The last one she'd left at 6:52 p.m., where she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Please, she sobbed. Please just talk to me. We can fix this. I love you. I made a mistake. Please don't do this. Please. I deleted it. Leo had sent messages too, trying to play the reasonable card. Bro, this isn't what it looks like. Let's talk man to man. Clara was confused. Nothing happened. You're making this worse than it is. I responded to exactly one message. Leo's last one where he'd written, "You're going to ruin her life over a misunderstanding." My response, no. I'm saving mine from fraud. Big difference. Enjoy the carpet business. Then I blocked both of them. Eli watched me handle my phone with the detached calm of someone who'd already processed all their emotions over the past 3 months. You really not going to talk to her? What's there to say? I asked. I spent 87 days documenting every lie, every plan to steal from me, every laugh at my expense. What conversation fixes that? What words make I was going to commit fraud and steal your house acceptable? Fair point. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I was happy. I wasn't sure I knew what happy felt like anymore, but because I was done. Done pretending. Done performing. Done being the loyal dog who didn't realize his owner had been training him for the pound. The next morning, I woke up in Eli's spare room, made coffee, and checked my phone one last time. Clara had sent one final message at 3:47 a.m. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I am. I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, the part that had loved her once, that had stood at an altar and meant those vows, wanted to believe her. Wanted to think this was all a terrible mistake that could somehow be fixed. But then I remembered day one. Hearing her laugh about calling me a dog. Hearing her plot with Leo to steal everything I'd worked for. The 86 days after that where she'd smiled to my face while sharpening knives for my back. I deleted the message. Opened my email. Started composing a response to Daphne. Let's move forward with everything. No settlements. No negotiations. I want this done. The dog had learned new tricks, all right. And the first trick was knowing when to walk away. The thing about consequences is that they're always more entertaining when they're happening to someone else. For the next 6 hours after turning my phone back on, I got a front row seat to the Clara and Leo disaster show. And let me tell you, it was better than anything Netflix has produced in the last 5 years. My phone kept buzzing like it had developed a nervous disorder. Every notification was another desperate attempt at damage control from people who'd spent 3 months thinking I was too stupid to notice my own life being stolen. The audacity of thinking I'd just answer their calls after 87 days of being treated like an obedient house pet was almost impressive. Almost. Clara called 17 more times throughout the evening. I know because my phone kept a tally like it was documenting a hostage situation. Which, in a way, I guess it was. Except the hostage had already escaped and the kidnappers were panicking about their empty ransom demands. Leo sent increasingly unhinged messages that devolved from, "Let's talk this out like adults," to "You're ruining everything," to "This is illegal what you're doing," which was rich coming from a guy who'd been conspiring to commit real estate fraud. That's like a bank robber calling the cops because someone stole his getaway car. The lack of self-awareness was almost artistic. But the real entertainment came from Clara's friends, the mysterious book club ladies who may or may not have actually existed. Suddenly, my phone was getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize, women with names like Jennifer and Stephanie and Ashley, all of them wanting to know what happened and whether I was being reasonable about this. One particularly bold specimen named Trish, who I'd met exactly once at a dinner party where she talked about essential oils for 45 minutes, actually left me a voicemail saying, "Clara made a mistake, but marriage is about forgiveness. You're being really immature about this." I saved that voicemail, not to respond to, but because someday when I needed to remember why I did this, I could listen to a stranger call me immature for refusing to accept fraud and infidelity. Really put things in perspective. Day 88 arrived with slightly fewer emergency contacts, but significantly more drama. Clara had apparently told everyone we knew, and I mean everyone, her version of events, which I'm sure painted her as the victim of a husband who overreacted to her getting close to an old friend. My mom called. That was fun. She'd heard from Clara's mom that we were getting divorced, and she wanted the real story because Clara seemed very upset and confused. The real story, I told my mother while stress-eating cereal at Eli's kitchen counter, is that Clara and her ex-boyfriend were planning to trick me into signing over our house so they could start a new life together. I found out, documented everything for 87 days, and filed for divorce. That's the real story. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, oh, well, that's different than what Linda said. Linda was Clara's mom. Sweet woman. Made excellent casseroles. Probably had no idea her daughter had been running a con that would make a used car salesman proud. Yeah, I imagine it is, I said. Do you need anything? Mom asked her, voice shifting from confused to protective mom mode. Should I come over? I'm good, Mom. I'm at Eli's. I've got a lawyer. I'm handling it. Okay, but honey, I'm proud of you. That hit differently than I expected. I'd spent 3 months thinking I was being pathetic, playing dumb, gathering evidence, pretending everything was fine while dying inside. But hearing my mom say she was proud made me realize that maybe what I'd done wasn't pathetic at all. Maybe it was strategic. Maybe it was smart. Maybe the dog had been smarter than the masters all along. Day 89, I finally agreed to meet Clara in person. Not because I wanted to, but because Daphne suggested it might be useful to hear what she had to say for closure purposes, which I think was lawyer speak for let her incriminate herself some more while you record the conversation. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, public enough that she couldn't cause a scene without everyone in a 3-block radius witnessing it. I got there early, ordered a black coffee I didn't plan on drinking, and sat at a table by the window where I could see her arrive. She showed up at 2:03 p.m., 3 minutes late, which was Clara's version of being on time. She looked wrecked. I don't say that with satisfaction or cruelty. She genuinely looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt that I was 90% sure was one of mine that she'd claimed disappeared in the laundry. She sat down across from me without ordering anything, and for a long moment, we just stared at each other like two people who'd once known everything about each other and now knew nothing at all. "Thanks for meeting me," she said finally, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "You've got 10 minutes, I replied, checking my phone for effect. "My lawyer said I should hear you out. So I'm hearing you out." "I made a mistake," she started, and I almost laughed because that was the understatement of the century. I got confused. Things with us had been distant, and Leo was there, and he listened, and I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. "You weren't thinking clearly for 3 months?" I asked. "Because that's how long you and Carpet Guy were planning to steal my house." She flinched at that. "I wasn't going to steal it. It was just, Leo said it would be better for taxes if." "Leo is a fraud," I interrupted. "My lawyer looked into him. He's been running schemes like this for years. You weren't special, Clara. You were just his next mark. Or maybe you were partners. I haven't decided which is worse." Her eyes filled with tears, which might have worked on me 3 months ago. Now they just looked like special effects in a bad performance. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. "I swear. I fell in love with someone else. That doesn't make me a bad person." "No," I agreed. "Falling in love with someone else doesn't make you a bad person. Falling in love with someone else while married, planning to commit fraud, calling your husband a dog, and laughing about how easy he'd be to manipulate? That makes you a bad person. The love part was just the excuse. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. I spent 87 days pretending I didn't know. I continued, keeping my voice level because I practiced this in my head roughly 10,000 times. 87 days making you breakfast, folding your laundry, listening to you lie about book club and late meetings. I documented every lie, every text message, every location ping when you were at hotels with Leo. I have evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. So don't sit here and tell me this was a mistake or that you weren't thinking clearly. You thought plenty clearly. You just thought I was too stupid to notice. Clara was crying now. Real tears, messy and desperate. Please, she said. Please, can we try therapy? Marriage counseling? Something? We've been together for 5 years. That has to count for something. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Daphne had prepared it for me. A copy of the property documents showing the conditional sale contract for our house, my name only, with a potential closing date 6 weeks out. I slid it across the table. See this? This is our house. The one you were planning to transfer into your name. It's being sold. I own 100%. You own regret. She stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. You can't. We both own the house. You can't sell it without me. Actually, I can list it. And once the divorce is finalized, which will be soon because you committed fraud, you'll get exactly what you deserve from the sale. I leaned forward, which, according to my lawyer, is significantly less than you were hoping for. This isn't fair, she said, her voice rising. People at nearby tables were starting to glance over. You can't just punish me forever because I made a mistake. I'm not punishing you forever, I said calmly. I'm divorcing you. There's a difference. You wanted a new life with Leo? Congratulations. You're getting it. Just not with my house and my money funding it. I stood up, leaving my untouched coffee on the table like the metaphor it was. Bitter, cold, and unwanted. Wait, Clara said, reaching for my hand. I pulled back before she could touch me. Please. I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you. We can fix this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find the woman I'd married. The one who'd laughed at my jokes and danced in our kitchen and promised me forever. She was gone. Maybe she'd never existed. Maybe I'd just been in love with a performance, and the real Clara was the one sitting here crying because her plan had failed. No, I said simply. We can't. Because I don't love you anymore. I stopped loving you somewhere around day 30 when I realized you were never going to tell me the truth. When I understood that you saw me as an obstacle instead of a partner. You killed whatever we had. I'm just signing the death certificate. I walked out of that coffee shop with my head up and my conscience clear. Behind me, I could hear Clara crying, probably waiting for me to turn around and come back like I always did. But the dog had learned the most important trick of all, knowing when to stay gone. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized on a Tuesday, which felt poetic considering the whole nightmare started on a Tuesday. Life has a sixth sense of symmetry like that. Clara and Leo ended up renting a sad little 2-bedroom condo near a strip mall that housed a discount gym and a dry cleaner that always smelled like burnt fabric. Their dream house with tax-free sunsets? Sold to a nice couple from Portland who paid asking price and didn't commit fraud to afford it. Their grand new life together? Turned out Leo had debts nobody knew about and Clara's consulting income mysteriously disappeared once she couldn't use my credentials anymore. Shocking, I know. I moved into a modest 1-bedroom apartment in a quieter neighborhood. Nothing fancy, no granite countertops or mid-century modern furniture that costs more than a car payment. But it was mine. Actually mine. No shared assets, no hidden agendas, just a lease with my name on it, and peace so tangible I could taste it. Best decision I made. Getting a dog. A real one this time. I named him Justice because I'm apparently that petty, and he's perfect. A golden retriever who's loyal without being stupid about it, which felt like personal growth for both of us. Every morning, Justice and I jog past Clara's old Pilates studio. He always stops at the corner to sniff around, and I like to think he smells poetic irony mixed with overpriced athleisure. Sometimes I see her through the window, stretching with the same women who called me immature for not accepting betrayal. I don't wave. Neither does she. Last week, an envelope arrived from Clara. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting. The same handwriting that used to write, "I love you," on post-it notes she'd leave around the house. Inside was a single piece of paper, Can we talk? I looked at Justice, who was chewing a toy shaped like a newspaper. What do you think, boy? Should we respond? He dropped the toy, tilted his head, and I swear he looked like he was considering it. Then I did what any self-respecting free man would do. I took a photo of Justice and me on our morning run, captioned it, "Sorry, this dog learned new tricks," and posted it on social media for the first time in months. Because after 87 days of playing the perfect fool, I'd finally become what Claren never expected, a free man with a killer sense of humor, a loyal dog, and zero regrets. Turns out, this golden retriever knew exactly when to stop fetching and start living.